Good evening. I'm Alpheus Marcus, community advocate. And I'd like to welcome you to Truth to Powerful and Urban Agenda. Today's show, as we say in this month here, is domestic violence. We have one of the most prolific advocates for domestic violence here, and I'm gonna let her tell you who she is and what she does.
Hi, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on the show. I really appreciate the work that you're doing. And it's very much needed in our community to bring resources, information, and awareness. And of course, that's a perfect segment into October. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Yes. And W.A.R.M is a non-for-profit organization that assists women of color in the Harlem community. My name is Stephanie McGrow. I'm the founder of W.A.R.M, and that stands for We All Really Matter. And if we don't matter, then what does it mean? You matter. We matter. The community matters. My life matters. Your children matter. Your family matter. We all really matter. And I gave birth to W.A.R.M 10 years ago, coming out of my vicious cycle of abusive relationships, very unhealthy and painful relationships. But I'm so grateful that I have a God of my understanding and I'm connected to the Creator, that He utilized and took my pain and turned it into glory. So my pain is for other women to gain. And, I took my wounds and turned them into wisdom. So I've been doing this work now for 10 years. We're celebrating our 10th year in existence of doing the work in the Harlem community.
Now, you said you was once a victim of domestic violence.
Yes, absolutely.
And you took that and empowered yourself to empower others.
Yes.
We know that domestic violence takes place predominantly within, is more hard in communities of color. Mm-hmm. What are the stigmas associated with domestic violence?
Well, first, the color, I get skin in the game. I'm a black woman, as you can see. So that's one of the issues. The other issues is poverty. Another issue is cultural, systemic cultural kind of institutions that have been put into the mindset of a black family. And three, this misconstrued kind of messages that, black women don't hurt, don't feel pain. That goes back to our history with our ancestors. You can beat us, you can rob us, you can rape us, you can steal our children, you can hang our men, and we have to be all right. We have to be strong. So all those stigmas kind of fall into play of keeping this community and black communities of color and all different states under that oppression.
Okay. Now, let me say this here, because what I've seen within the black community, especially, here in Harlem, a lot of single mothers, and I've watched how the cycle continues from mothers are looking for love, finding love in all the wrong places, having children, and children seeing these abusive relationships, physically as well as emotionally. How, as a community, can we begin the process of phasing out domestic violence?
Well, I think that it's going to be it's a long, slow process. And there's a lot of mechanisms that need to put in place before we even begin to kind of, how you say, phase it out. First, you have to recognize, you have to become aware, you have to be able to call it and name it. You can't fix what you can't see. So if you're not in a place where you can even recognize or see the cycle of abuse, or see the trauma, that the trickle down kind of like, what happens in a community of color and some of these, like for instance, the home I grew up in, this is like passed down from generation to generation. So if you can't claim it and see it and understand what it is, then what you don't do as I say, You do as I do. So, you go out in the universe, and I'm talking about myself, going out and do this kind of thing that's called drama bonding. So I'm already connecting with you with my drama. I'm not even connecting with you with who I am and the greatness and the powerful and the love that and the wealth and the worthiness and the high self-esteem. I'm not connecting with you at those kind of levels because I was not taught that as a child in my home. So right off the gate, how you going to stop that? You have to go back in to start that internal, trauma healing. And you can't start that if you don't have any kind of awareness that, hey, this is what's going on with me. So I think the awareness is the first piece. And the second thing that I've seen in my own experience in dealing now with women in the community and trying to break the vicious cycle of abuse is that, you cannot begin to love anyone else until you learn to love yourself. You said that, looking for love in all the wrong places. Yeah. And then the other thing is, I'm going to come with you. Hey, I like you. I think you're a nice guy. But I'm coming with these brokenness and I'm coming with these traumas. So I'm bringing 50% of something that is half. You bringing your half. So it's two messed up people that's coming together to make a mess. So stop. Go get you some help. As a matter of fact, go get you some. Okay, fly girl, you can get your Gucci bag. I'm talking about me. Take that damn $3,000 Gucci bag off and go get you some therapy, girl. So this is what we have to, because we are already conditioned. We are so conditioned. I'm going to buy my pain away. I'm going to buy that pain away where I don't have to feel it. So, feel, deal, and heal. That's how we begin to break down those constructions, kind of domestic violence walls that have been put in place.
Now, I say this because me growing up, right, I can say I was a child of domestic violence. My mother, one of the most strongest women I've ever known in my life, right? Both parts. My grandmother was verbally, and my mother was more physically. My mother would I would come home and help my mother fight her boyfriends. I remember one time coming home from school and my brother's father running past me because my mother shot him.
Wow.
Right? I've seen domestic violence all my life. I refuse to engage in it because literally, from what I've seen, I refuse to, repeat that. Mm-hmm. And it scares me because once, like arguing with a female is different from arguing with a male.
Yes.
Arguing with a male, it becomes a thing where you're not understanding what I'm saying and I understand it. The only thing you understand is violence. Well, for female, it's like, listen, I don't even want to argue because, this here is going to go someplace where I don't want it to go, and I'm afraid because I've seen it so much. Mm-hmm. I refuse to be a part of that. How does one who identified those traits begin to not just heal, but begin to actually effectuate the change necessary? That way, the next female, because I've seen, like I said, my mother, if she wasn't fighting, she didn't feel anything was there, any emotions was there. How do we stop those components within our communities?
Yeah, that's a tall order, and it's going to take all hands involved, everyone involved, and to get involved, to talk about it, to bring awareness. Awareness is a key, because I too grew up in an abusive home. It just didn't happen. I was conditioned to see that kind of violence. So in my mindset, I thought that violence was love. So I went out into the universe, not actually like looking for love, but I actually went out and manifest what I felt. So, my relationships wasn't about them. It was about how I felt about me. So you only, those relationships was only a manifestation of how Stephanie felt about herself. So how do we begin to change that? Is we become aware of it, and not only become aware of it, but like look at some of the patterns, and that takes time because when you're so conditioned, and when you're living in an environment, that's all you see. You don't know. I didn't know that this was domestic violence. So first of all, let's look at, call it for what it is. That kind of treatment and those behaviors and what I saw in my home had a name for it. But in our Black communities, we didn't call it that. We just said, you know, Uncle Joe was just a little upset. Uncle Joe got a little crazy. Oh, Daddy is okay. You know, he came home a little frustrated, so, you know, he beat Mom. No, that's not okay. It's called domestic violence. So how do we begin to break that down? Is calling it for what it is, and knowing that it's domestic violence is a crime, not a shame. But in our community, we're shame-based. We come from 400 years of trauma. So we got that trauma in us with shame. And shame, we know that doesn't allow any kind of healing, any kind of light, any kind of substance to come out of shame, because it's like, I'm shamed. So I'm not going to talk about it. It's not nothing to be ashamed of. It's not a shame. Domestic violence is a crime. That's how we can begin, again, to break down those walls, is to identify what's happening to us and then go get the help. But again, we live in a community, we don't call the police, we don't tell about the police, and I understand why. You know, Black men are being murdered, you know, I'm afraid I call the police in my house, you know, my husband, my boyfriend, my brother may be in jeopardy of getting killed. Kind of, you know, wounds that are in us, and rightfully so. You know, come on, look at the temperature where we at now. However, I want to say that, you know, we do have some things in place that can help. We have organizations like W.A.R.M, like my organization, We Are Really Matter, that is here in the community, that was the only organization that stayed open during the pandemic. We stayed open because we knew that we have a community that had a 33% uptick in domestic violence. And we know that Black and brown women are subject to not receive the resources in the community because they're just not there. So we just knew we had to stay open.
Let me ask you this question. The demographics for the highest rate of domestic violence, what age group is that in?
It's between 24 and like 35. It's in that age group. But let me go back and say, no, it starts at a very early age, you know, because it's, you know, teenagers are starting to experience domestic violence in a higher rate as well. It's just that now, because there's a little more awareness out, the numbers are going up because there's more like, okay, this is what this is what's happening to me. So the numbers, I say, could be from 16 to 35.
Okay. Because I've seen some issues where in some of the schools, I've seen little boys normalize the behavior of picking on girls.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't have any daughters, but I have nieces, I have younger sisters who I am overly protected of. Mm-hmm. And me knowing that I just have boys, even grandsons, I know how I would respond if I had a daughter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I see kids and men fighting women and abusing women, like it brings up that you can't do that. I understand that's your girlfriend or whatever, but you can't do that. Not here in the streets. Mm-hmm. You know, it's bad enough you're going to do it when you get wherever you're going to go at, but you shouldn't do that. Do you think, because I've witnessed abuse by women, mm-hmm. as well as abuse by men.
Right.
Does communication or lack of communication play a part in that?
Well, absolutely. You know, communication is the key to every successful relationship, whether it's relationship with husband and wife, daughter and mother, son and mother. So when communication is broken down, when you don't have that ability to communicate, you know, a lot of the frustrations come from with men. You know, in my household, when my brothers were beaten, they were told, you better not cry. When I was beaten, you better not cry. So those emotions already are very tricky, because you don't have that ability to say, I'm hurt. What you did hurt my feelings. You disrespected me. I felt betrayal. When you're not able to express those emotions, then that's where the anger and rage come out, and anger management, because those things are so suppressed. And then when you see only your father, your mother behaving like that, when tension comes into the atmosphere, and the way they handle it is through fighting, then you begin to see, okay, that's how I resolve this. You know, I know a lot of the men, we deal with a small portion, but even my abuser, you know, the conversation that we had years later, you know, it's like, you know, one of the things is that, you know, these are broken little boys, and the women that are experienced domestic violence are also broken. But a lot of times the deepness of that behavior from the man has nothing to do with either person they're looking at. It is they are trying to rectify that first brokenness, which is their mothers. So if a man does not respect and love and honor his mother, or if he had any kind of violations of any kind of abandonment issues from his mother, any woman that comes across that man's path is going to get it. So
yeah, I agree with that.
that's where it starts. And you know, the thing is, what I want to tell my sisters, you can't fix it. You didn't cause it. You can't control it. And you cannot change it. The only thing that you are responsible for, my sisters and brothers, because we do have a small portion of men that are experiencing domestic violence, is to change yourself. You're not responsible for his behavior, but you are responsible for your own personal recovery. That's the way we stop any kind of violence. Not looking at him, looking at you, Stephanie. 3 pointing back. If I'm pointing at you, the camera, so you see that 3, that means I'm pointing 1 at you, 3 is coming back at me. So this is where the shift happens with anything in life. It begins and ends with me, and the only way that we are going to eradicate or either try to scratch the surface of domestic violence is we start talking about it and understanding that this is a serious issue that has been plaguing our community for years. 400 years of trauma we've dealt with.
No, trust me. I just had a conversation the other day, right, where politically we speak about the 1994 crime bill.
Yes.
A lot of people don't understand that the 1994 crime bill, right, was literally enacted behind domestic violence. But it was literally sparked, enacted because of domestic violence. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize that when it was put in play, it really didn't have a meaning until the biggest, domestic violence.
O.J. Simpson.
Exactly, O.J. Simpson. See, a lot of people won't, when you bring that up, a lot of people look at you and be like, no, nah.
Right.
But this is how the 1994 crime bill came about.
Yeah, and then President Clinton also created the domestic violence task force, where every precinct would have domestic violence awareness officers in the precincts, which I never even heard about that.
But a lot of people don't know that history. Mm-hmm. And it's astonishing that when we look at the reason why that took place, because I honestly believe if O.J. killed a black woman, that law would have never been passed. The fact that he killed a white woman meant volumes. Mm-hmm. We can kill one another, but if it's a mixed marriage and that takes place, it's going to magnify. Mm-hmm. How do we start holding our political leaders accountable? Because, like I said, I've witnessed domestic violence tendencies beginning in grade schools. Mm-hmm. I've seen kids with the potential to be violent individuals towards women early.
Yeah.
How do we begin to hold the elected officials accountable for services, preventive services?
Well, first thing we have to do is make the comfortable uncomfortable and the uncomfortable comfortable. And this is an issue where people just don't want to tap into. Maybe they may be having their own personal experience. So, it's more easier to accept breast cancer because breast cancer is like, okay, I didn't have anything to do with this and this thing created in my body. Or domestic violence, oh, well, she had something to do with that. So, maybe she deserved that. No, it's a sickness. It is a sickness just like a disease. It's ease, the dis-ease in the spirit. If that's what it is, there's no different from domestic violence and breast cancer. It's all the same thing, or gun violence, it's all violence. However, we have to make the comfortable uncomfortable. That would be the elected officials, and the comfortable. And the people that are comfortable, we have to make them a little bit uncomfortable. So that's how we get to start shifting that to say, look, this is what this issue is, and it deserves to be highlighted. It deserves to be talked about. But, a lot of times people are just uncomfortable talking about it because it's just too close to their own situations. And maybe they may be having that kind of experience in their own homes, in their own relationships.
And that's some of the things that, when I look at how our community normalized some of these things, right? It makes the uncomfortable within say, damn. Because when you look at the numbers of people who engage in violent behaviors, because one, they don't understand the interpersonal relationship. Mm-hmm. They can't identify that. Mm-hmm. They don't know the tools.
They don't have them. They don't have them.
They don't have them because a lack of education, a lack of resources, the frustration from having to work multiple jobs just to get ahead. Mm-hmm. Even though trying to get ahead, you just barely scratching the surface. So when you speak about making the elected officials uncomfortable, it falls in line with holding them accountable. Mm-hmm. Because Absolutely. If you're willing to ignore the root of the problems within your constituent base, then you're not for the people.
Absolutely.
And, we have to be careful about how we vote. If we're just investing in the careers of politicians and we're not seeing anything on our return, mm-hmm. there's a problem.
That is, absolutely.
There's a problem. When we have issues that's been prolonged,
unaddressed,
have become a cesspool, right, of destruction, it's time to clean that cesspool.
Yeah.
Since I met you, I've seen what you've done and I've always supported.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so much.
Like, when I say literally, I admire you.
Thank you.
You know what I mean? I do a lot, but it's nowhere near what you do. It's nowhere near what you do. Because when I tell you, this work is...
It's intense.
This work is, literally, it's almost killed me. Mm. I've been hospitalized from doing so much. When I look at what people like yourself do, it's like, whoa. It gives me that much more, motivation to make sure that whatever needs to be addressed, whatever resources I have, I can extend. You know what I mean? Because I believe that if we network, a lot of the issues that we face can be slowly but surely eradicated.
Yeah.
But we have to be willing to network, because what I've seen is people with organizations, they cozy up to these politicians, knowing these politicians ain't doing nothing. And they continue that process while everybody else, is struggling to get, the necessities. Mm-hmm. That has been a problem.
It absolutely has been a problem. It's been a problem for 400 years.
Yeah.
And we are conditioned, sadly to say, we are conditioned. So before we talk about even letting any one in our community to try to help and fix this. We need to internally fix our own problems with each other because we don't have that unity in the community. We don't have that with us. So when you say some organizations and kissing up to some of the politicians, unfortunately, some of us, not some of us, all of us, even myself, it's taken me years to come from under that 400 years of condition, where we've been conditioned not to support, not to like each other. Our ancestors were taught beaten, don't talk your own language, tearing down a family. So this stuff is trickled down. It's really deep in us. So until we begin to say, as our own Black people in the community, to come together so we can internalize and start working together, we still have that fear of, if I open up and let you in, then I'm not going to get anything. And at the end of the day, it don't even belong to you or me. It is all given from God.
I ain't gonna lie. That's a good way. I like Harriet Tubman's way. Mm-hmm. If you in the way, we gonna move you out the way.
Yeah.
I like that way because I can tell you, when I first started doing community advocacy work, what I seen was a need for a coalition. Uh-huh. And a lot of people wasn't for the coalition. A lot of people was getting close with a lot of these politicians. A lot of these people were saying, listen, what have you done? If you ain't do nothing, I don't want to, I don't want you around me.
Yeah.
I found that to be offensive. So as time went on and I started growing, now everybody's like, yo, why don't you come? No, because your heart is not really in it for the community. Mm-hmm. And if it's not really in it for the community, we have two different agendas. Like what I do when I help the community, I do for one purpose. And it's coming from a background of being a part of the streets, coming from a background of being a part of that destructive cycle that was taking place.
Yes, absolutely.
I do what I do because what I want in life is to touch as many people as I can.
Right.
I want that big ass funeral that some of these celebrities get, where people come who I've touched their lives and helped out, where they can say, yeah, he did that, but this is what he did, and these are the changes he made. Yeah. That's what I want to do. That's my whole purpose of doing what I do. Nothing else. Like, I don't get paid for the things I do, but I do it just for the simple fact that I help somebody, and the only thing I ask for them to do is pay it forward.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Because it's important. We've been held back by our own, where we've engaged in self-genocidal
absolutely
warfare amongst each other. Like, I remember when owners of businesses, and when you came to them, you asked them, how do you start this business? Oh, you got to pay me for me to show you. And then they wind up failing. And I'd be looking, I'm like, that's because you're karma. You didn't do what was right. I don't want to be the person on the other side of that finger when they say, yo, you could have helped me and you didn't.
Yeah.
That's my biggest fear to date, is not everybody seeing what I'm doing, loving what I'm doing, and me not giving it to them the way it's supposed to be given. Like I tell everybody, while I'm here, use me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's so much that you can benefit from. Use me. If I can extend myself, something that's needed, please call me.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because it's necessary. And I love the work. And anybody that's doing work for the community, I'm for.
Like Malcolm said, freedom by any means necessary.
Any means necessary. I believe that.
Yes.
I believe that. Some of these politicians, if I can help it, they're going to start doing what they're supposed to do, or we're going to remove them out of office. If that means homegrown and our own elected officials to run, that's what it'll be. I appreciate you coming. I appreciate the work you do. And I hope that this doesn't be the only time that you come, because I believe strongly if domestic violence is happening every day within a community, at least once a month we're going to dedicate domestic violence and awareness of domestic violence.
Yeah, and not only, just in the community, since the pandemic, March 13, when all of the world was shut in, the pandemic gave abusers the red light to abuse their abusers even more, because one of the things about abuse is power control and isolation. So now I don't have to try to isolate you. I have the green light and the permission to isolate you. So that's when the numbers of domestic violence really went up. And then we had a world that was so conditioned to heal ourselves through the movies, through food, through shopping, through going out on vacation. So when the world shut down and we all had to go in and no one had the tools to, like we talked about, communication, that's when we saw the numbers of domestic violence just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And that's why W.A.R.M, We All Really Matter, decided to keep our doors open. We are located at WeWork at 8 West 126th Street, 3rd floor. We're open 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. We have protective gear in custodies. We have PPEs. We have social distance. We have hand sanitizer to protect ourselves and our clients. And the space is big enough. And during the pandemic, we were able to see 42 new clients, get 7 order protections, 6 emergency removals where we were able to go into the homes with the police officers to get these women out. We served 44,852 meals. We gave out 8,373 PPEs, and we gave out 211 wellness packages. That was all since the pandemic, which started in March 27th. At the end of that month, March, we opened our doors, and we've been open ever since. That's what we have been doing in our community, because we understand some of the disparities that were happening, and we were going into, because I'm from the streets. So
look, I know I was getting to Texas.
Okay.
I loved it.
I'm from the streets, so we didn't have no problem with going up, suiting up, and getting to what needed to be done. That's what we are. We're grassroots. We are here. We're on the ground. We're on the front line, and we have been frontline workers since the pandemic.
And I appreciate that.
Yes.
I'm saying that because literally, truth to powerful and urban agenda, that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about real leaders doing real things for the community and showing the community this is how it's supposed to be.
Yes, absolutely.
You know, that's one of the reasons why I started this platform, to bring leaders such as yourself on.
Thank you. I appreciate
because
you.
It's necessary. One thing I've always said within our communities, we've been so disconnected, right?
By design.
No.
Okay.
Look.
That's
disconnected by design.
That's
literally.
another conversation in another segment.
You know what I'm gonna do? When that conversation comes, I'm gonna have 3 chairs here.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
literally it needs to be said, it needs to be heard, because we have been misled for everybody else's agenda to the point where hope is no longer hope. And no one should ever have to rely on hope for something to come when it should be there. You know what I'm saying? If people should know what's going on,
right,
to the point where we remove those barriers so our community understand that we're fighting for you.
Right.
You know, so again, I appreciate you coming. I think we went more than over the time. I would love to have you back.
Thank you. I would love to be back. And if you want more information, you can go to weareallymatter.org.
See?
Our office is 8 West 126th, 3rd floor. You can call for an appointment. That number is 917-736-0680. That is our number to reach us. We are available, and we want to thank you for having us on the show.
Tell me your name one more time.
My name is Stephanie McGrow. I'm the founder and the CEO of W.A.R.M, and that stands for We All Really Matter. And if we don't matter, then what does it mean? Just take that home and let that marinate with you. Well, you're already home, so just think about that while you're home. But thank you.
And as you know, this is Truth to Powerful and Urban Agenda, and this is why we have guests such as Stephanie here, so that you can see what real leadership is about. Thank you, and enjoy your evening.